The lady at the eye doctor, she's actually. Remember that warning? Yeah. His daughter. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. It's nice to see a decent crowd, and I guess if you don't know all of us, I would assume you should, but I'm Dustin Lawfer, the Commissioner Chairman.
Kevin Bacon.
Anthony Larson.
Justin Blake.
And we got Justin Blake here, I guess, just to start. He is currently serving as our interim highway supervisor. After Josh Anderson moved on, I guess Justin expressed interest in filling the void, and we do have an open position for it, but currently Justin is doing a nice job of keeping everything in line and organizing the day-to-day stuff. So we really appreciate him for that. So we're definitely a little short-handed out there, but I guess we'll talk about that more. I guess tonight, just a little kind of a quick overview of what the goals are tonight. Just good discussion. We've got a number of employees of the county, I guess, and elected officials here. Hopefully can answer any questions you may have. Hope to keep it civil and work together, I guess. For starters, I guess your state's attorney, Aaron Rosen's hiding over there. Your sheriff, Jordan Fisher's in the back. We've got the auditor, Krista, and we've got Katie Rosen over there, your tax director, and we've got some deputy auditors here too. So, Frank. Oh, Frank, yes. Frank's hiding in the back with his head down too. Your emergency manager and your veterans officer. Wearing two hats for us. So, yeah, hopefully we got anybody here that can answer any questions or things you need. And I guess I did also invite Scott Meschel over here in the corner. Scott is from Bismarck, and I'm actually just going to let him introduce himself. And he has a lot of knowledge, and I guess after he introduces himself, maybe you want to ask him questions, or he can be here hopefully for a while to answer any questions as we go. So.
Yeah, thanks very much. Dustin, my name is Scott Meschel, and I'm here on behalf of the North Dakota Township Officers Association. How many township officers do we have in the room? Okay, outstanding. Thank you very much for doing that. Really for a couple of reasons. One, to let you know that the state association is working extremely hard on a couple of things. One, their new strategic plan. You're going to see new communications come out. So please go to their website, engage with them, let them know what you need, what you want, what are your challenges being a township officer, besides your county officials. I don't want to hear that townships have problems with counties. I'm just kidding. We also work very closely with the League of Cities and also the North Dakota Association of Counties, specifically on one issue right now, and that is the property tax measure. So all three organizations, along with other probably 4 dozen, have taken a stance against the measure that will probably be placed on the ballot in November. And if you want to know why getting rid of property taxes is a bad idea, I've got a lot of talking points which I won't go into. But I want to tell you that giving up your local control over some of the things that you're talking about doing right now, and having to go to Bismarck every 2 years. So your budgets now will have to go on a 2-year basis, because that's when the legislature meets, is every 2 years. And if you have issues that aren't resolved by your current property tax levy, you're gonna have to go and beg for money, along with the school districts, park districts, counties, cities, and townships. So I'm gonna urge you, take a look at the measure, please know what you're voting for, and also make sure you sign up for the $500 property tax credit. Please do that, because that will hit your next year's bill, your $500 credit. Sign up for that before the end of March. And again, I'm here to listen. I'm a fan of local government. My girlfriend has a little bit of land outside of town here, so I get I get down here quite often to shoot some birds. So, but anyway, during season. Trust me. But anyway, if any of the township officers want, I am going to stick around. But I'm here to learn about some of the issues here at the local government level. But I appreciate Dustin for asking me to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Scott. So I guess I don't have a formal agenda, but I asked Justin to be here tonight. He's only kind of been in the shoes here for just a couple of weeks. Justin and I kind of started the spring blading today, I guess, in February, but I guess after talking to him, he said it's obviously a little dry, but working up all right. But if you have any questions, you can direct them towards Justin, or we'll try to help him out too as far as the highway department goes. And again, I wanted to leave it fairly informal, but I think Anthony wanted to do some presenting on the history of the county and city stuff too. So if you're ready for that,
Sure.
Mr. Larson, we'll just let you take off of that.
Anybody sneak in that didn't get a copy? Thank you. So during my time as a commissioner, certainly the budget is one of the major functions of the county commission, to establish the levy, set the taxes, what all of we as residents are going to pay. And we traditionally, at least my experience, we spend a lot of time on the expense side of the budget. But as I've gotten more familiar with my role, there's a revenue component as well, and it's a bit unique in Adams County. Some of you may be very familiar with this and others less so. But what I did was, the sheet that I handed out, this is very much an abridged version of my research. So when I first got on, I wanted to review the agreements. Adams County is unique, as I'm told. Some of you would know much better than I. We've got a past commissioner that maybe was involved back in the day. But the relationship between the city and the county is very unique, as I'm told. It goes back, and you'll see at the beginning of what I handed out, there was a report done in 1986 from the North Dakota State Highway Department and Upper Great Plains Transportation Institute. It's very good reading. Basically, as I read through it, it was a promotional piece, as I could see, of counties and cities working together. And certainly when resources are limited and tight, we all, I think, would agree that that makes good sense. And so there was a report put together, and I just highlighted some of the, just some points from that report. Certainly if you wanted to get a copy, or we could certainly get that to you. But it kind of formulated what the initial relationship was going to be. At that time, the county employed 6 full-time persons, and the city employed 1 person. And so the city employee became a county employee. There was costs associated with that. The city paid for an addition to the shop facilities at the county. There was looks like a 25 by 60 bay added that the city spent $25,000 on. That was determined to be about 25% of the total shop. And so I won't go through all of the details here, but I just wanted to kind of give you an overview. You'll see then that original agreement started in 1984, actually. So that was some 40 years ago. And Then I tried to bold just so you can kind of get a sense for how this was being reviewed going forward. It was recognized at the very get-go that the city was going to gain significantly, and the county would be less noticeable benefits, but there would be benefits. So then in 87, 89, 90, 92, 93, there were some modest changes, primarily to the hourly rate for labor. So the relationship, as I understand, and even to this day, is the county employees, when they provide services in the city, then there's a fee assessed for that labor that's done, since the city has no employees. It was also updated, so it went to 93, then 97, then 99, and that's where things kind of stalled out as I look at this. At that time, in 99, there was a fee established of $7,000 annually for the county to provide monthly utility billing services. So that's about 25 years ago. Today it's $8,500. So in 25 years, that cost went from $7,000. Actually, it just went to $8,500 this year in 25 years. There was an adjustment then in 2008. The contract was updated. 2018 is when it was supposed to go to 8,500, but it actually was at 8,000. And so that's kind of where we are today. Now, why is this important? Why I think this is important is, in my role as a county commissioner, certainly the residents of Hettinger are county residents. But I think what's important to understand, and this kind of plays into the whole property tax measure, and I want to just add a couple comments to that as well when done, is the fact that in Adams County today, any guesses what percent of the valuation is in the city of Hettinger? So if there's $1 of tax levied by Adams County, how much of that comes from the city of Hettinger today? Any guesses?
25%.
Less than 18. So for every dollar, that's 17.8 cents. That's based on the valuation. And that actually feeds into much of the momentum, I believe, for ending property tax, okay? But that aside, if the county subsidizes the city, what actually is happening? The 82% or 82 cents of the rural folks or the non-Hettinger folks are paying for the city of Hettinger. And so I don't know what the number is, but what I wanted to do, because we have started to engage the city in some of these discussions, the county has not actively addressed this issue to this point. And so that's something that, in my opinion, we truly need to be. It's about equity, it's about fairness. And quite honestly, because nothing has been done for so long, or very little, it requires huge, huge changes. And so I just wanted to put some of this information out. Certainly entertain questions, and I hope there are lots of questions about it, because it's taxpayer dollars, whether it's from the city or the county. Somebody's got to pay the bill. And I think we all recognize that. I certainly recognize that. But at the end of the day, there has to be equity in how all of this is handled. And so I think that's just kind of an interesting piece that I wanted to just share that a bit. So we do intend, we met with the city in October, and I think we plan May or June to meet again prior to the budget process. In addition to this agreement, I would mention that the city also pays the county for police services. So, a question. Should the cost of police services in the county be the same for me if I live out in the country or somebody that lives in town? Should we pay the same price, or should it be disproportionate to more land or less land?
Well, I guess I would like to say, Anthony, thank you for bringing this up, and this has been, looking into it about 3-4 years ago. I think the city of Hettinger substantially underpaid their responsibility. Now, getting to your specific question, it's without a doubt, whatever the charge is to keep a deputy in Hettinger, whether they need 1 or 2 or 3, that should be the city's responsibility because they are a separate jurisdiction. And since the jurisdiction is separate, they should be responsible for policing their own activity. It's no different than if I go to Bismarck, you seldom see a sheriff, Burley County Sheriff driving around giving tickets or arresting anybody. They are typically there for backup. So in this situation with the contract, we'd have a little different situation because the sheriff's office would be responding. But the jurisdiction issue, I think, is the key to say that the county should be the city should be paying the deputy's wage, whether they 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. And that's a city decision. And so I think I'll leave it at that.
So there is that agreement, go ahead, please.
I guess I would ask what the city of Reader is paying, which we know is nothing. The city of Haines is paying nothing. The city of Bucyrus is paying nothing. Sheriff's job is to enforce North Dakota Century Code, and that is regardless of whether it's in the city of Hettinger, Whetstone Township, Orange Township, whatever. A policing contract, correct me if I'm wrong, is to enforce city ordinances. What percentage of your calls are for city ordinances?
Very minimal. I don't have that.
You're required to enforce Century Code countywide, whether it's a city, township, whatever. But city ordinances is a small number of calls.
Yeah, so I don't have the numbers with me. I didn't realize that I'd be speaking tonight, so I apologize to everyone for not having any data with me. But if anybody's interested in our data, I'll be publishing that here within the next few weeks. As far as last year's calls for service, the volume goes, our calls for service are exponentially higher in the city just because it's a more populated area, obviously, in the city of Hettinger. But as far as the police services go, that is to enforce city ordinance, not North Dakota State Century Code, which is the law. It's my obligation as a sheriff and my deputy's obligation to enforce State Century Code throughout the entirety of the county.
So with that, not to belabor that, but I love this because this is a healthy discussion about what we're all paying for, and we need to do more of that. In addition to that, there also are agreements between the city for the auditor's office. I believe it's 10% of that budget, also with the tax director's office. So I just want to let everybody know there's a number of pieces, and I think it's wonderful how we work together, but truly from a county standpoint, we have a responsibility to make sure that there's equity with that. And so all of these pieces come together, and truly it's on the revenue side, right? It's easy for us to cut expenses, and in my experience, then that's where we're at. But there's a revenue component as well. Looking at our neighbors, anyhow, I'll just leave it at that.
How many deputies do they have in this county?
I guess the sheriff.
It's myself and then I'm slotted for 4. Slotted for 4.
So technically then, hey,
4
we
deputies
quit
myself.
paying for the sheriff, and the sheriff still has to patrol town, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Reader, Haines, they don't pay anything. They really, if they wanted to, they could just say, we're not gonna give you anything, and us in the county and out in the country are still kind of a crick with that, right? Technically.
Yeah, so my take is that where I come from on this is that I can only support a certain levy for the county.
Right.
So maybe we just have one sheriff, I don't know. If we aren't collectively willing to support the cost of a sheriff's department or other services, then I guess the commissioners would have to make decisions based on what they're gonna do. I know from neighboring counties, certainly there is more cooperation and there's more equity probably in how the finances are handled. Yeah. And then just moving on, I wanted to just add a bit to what Scott mentioned, and he mentioned some groups that are opposed to it. I'm involved with Rural Electrics, they also are opposed, lots of groups are opposed. But there too, I think this is really a positive thing. And because of that, or why I say that is, we need to understand what we pay. I don't know about you, but before I was a commissioner, I'd get my bill, I would grumble, I'd write the check, and that was the end of it. We as taxpayers in general don't have a clue what's going on here. And so I hope that this kind of brings to the forefront, you've elected us to levy taxes, we all elect people in Bismarck to make spending decisions. Let's hold us and hold them accountable if we don't like how the money's spent or if they're spending too much money. If you look at the actual constitutional measure, I would encourage you to print it out and look at it. Property tax by assessed value is the only thing that's removed. It's just the assessed value. So as I understand, and Scott can correct me, if we had to generate more revenue if this passes, we may just have to levy a tax per acre, per house. It's just the assessed value that goes away. So don't be fooled to think that property tax goes away. Your political subdivisions, if they have to pay the bills, they just create a new tax.
Let's say if they wanted to build a new school, we'd have to vote on it, so we'd still have a property tax, wouldn't we?
So this just outlines by assessed value. So you could tax people by how many kids they have. So in any event, I won't belabor it, but I just think that's a distinction people need to understand. It's just the assessed value that is forbidden. That's all I have, Jim.
Frank, I have a question about the tax with law enforcement versus city, whatever. You know, correct me if I'm wrong, but if I live in the city, I'm paying a higher tax rate because I have improved streets and so on, because that increases the value of my property. If I live in the country, I don't have to pay quite those additional taxes because it's not as far improved, correct?
So, I guess, Katie, did you bring some information? Katie has, I believe, some information that compares tax that is paid by a county resident and by a city resident. And I think that information will pertain to this
And the
discussion.
next thing I'm going to bring up is, you know, any resident who lives outside of the city limits pays for the same service that the city limits members pay for as far as law enforcement goes. If they call 911, they expect a cop to be there the same as the person in the city. So the service provided is the same. Many of the time, it costs more for them to respond to an outside a person living 10 miles away than it does for somebody in another block.
Yeah, absolutely. You got
Okay.
mileage, you got time.
Yeah. So, you know, granted, when they're patrolling the city, because there's so many, they're gonna have more encounters. But I don't know that delinquishes the amount of, taxes that the county should pay, or should they pay more? I'm not sure. I think we have to find an equal level somewhere.
Well, I'll turn it over to Katie so she can kind of shed some light on some of this.
Not sure if everyone can see this, but I took 5 parcels in the county, one in New Cyrus Township, one in Hettinger Township, one in the city of Hettinger, Taylor Butte Township, Holt Township. The second line down is gonna be the true and full value. That equates to market value roughly. For ag land, it equates to the production value of the soil, which is approximately a third of market value. So ag land is taxed based off the production value, not the market value. And then we break down the taxable values. Try to get them as close as possible. We're sitting around 8,000 to 9,000 in taxable value for each of these. Adams County last year levied 81.97 mills. You can see across the board in each column that was about $600 to $700 in taxes that each of those taxpayers paid. Skip the city township line for now. The school district, 117.71 mills. Fire department, 5 mills, and then state medical center, 1 mill. Everybody in North Dakota pays that. All of those values equate to approximately the same number. Property taxes are ad valorem taxes. That literally means according to value. So somebody that owns $187,000 in value is going to pay, according to the mill rates, $1,800 in taxes. If you own $2 million in value, you're gonna pay more in taxes. Now the city township is where it looks different. The townships, the max mills a township can levy is 18 mills. They all levy 18 except for Hettinger Township levies 12.5. And the city of Hettinger levied 93.32 mils. So you can see the city township portion of this tax statement, $147, $105, $145, $158, $776 in the city. That's gonna go to your improved streets. That's gonna go to your park district, so we can have parks, so we can have, summer sports, you know, and again, just city taxpayers are paying those. They're open to everybody in the county, but that's a cost shouldered by city residents, so. Any questions on that?
How many townships are there?
28.
How many pay 18?
Well, I couldn't tell you that off the top of my head.
Most of them pay the 18?
Most of them.
I'd
say 3/4 of them.
Yeah, I know one township doesn't levy anything.
An organized township? Really?
Gilstrap
Which one's that?
Township does not levy.
Who?
Gilstrap Township, and City of Bucyrus does not levy taxes either. But the bulk of them are 18 or very close to 18. But there are a few that are lower, so.
Most of those will probably be moving up to 18 because they won't get any grant funding if they aren't at the 18.
Yep.
So I think we'll see most of them going up to that.
We had two that actually changed theirs this year to be able to be,
Qualified.
able to get the grant funding.
Interesting.
Any questions on that? Does that kind of cover it?
Thank you, Katie.
I do, but I have other stuff I can talk about, but I don't
Well,
wanna.
if we have no questions on tax stuff, Katie, if you got more, yeah, take the floor.
Can I ask you a question? For
Yeah.
you? When's the last time property was assessed in Adams County?
It's been a while.
Like 40 years?
No. The bulk of parcels that I run across when I look back historically, I would say 2014, 2015. So especially post-COVID, our values are high.
What about the city of Hettinger? Same with those?
So, just a quick question, so a farmer that has multiple buildings, do they pay taxes on those buildings?
Not if you're farming. So, I mean, the bulk of farmers are using their farm buildings as part of their farm operation. But if you've got a farm building out there and you've got a boat and a camper and, you know, side-by-sides and, you know, a bunch of boy toys, then it would be assessed, because it's not being used as part of a farm plat.
So if a farmer
So
builds.
if I'm coming out, move those out, good ground.
No,
Neighbors are.
it's not a fun cross the road. But if you go east of town here, you'll still get a bunch of bins. Would they be something that would be assessed? Even though they're not on a farm site?
Yep, no,
They're
as
used part of the farm?
part for egg, yep.
Do you have a guess on property values back then and property values now? Have they risen like 50%?
Some
100%?
properties, yeah. Yeah, some are very far behind. When we had a gentleman come in, you know, thinking his house should be worth 14,000, it was assessed at 28, and we ran it real quick and it was 64. So, and that doesn't even include a garage that we didn't know about, so.
So that's gonna dramatically increase the taxes, correct?
Well, it would increase the value, that doesn't necessarily
Unless you
increase
change
the
mills.
taxes,
Unless you
yeah.
change the mills.
But some of those entities, I mean, the school takes the max mill, they're doing everything they can with the money they have, you know, some of those entities aren't gonna change their mill even with the value.
But that is increasing your taxes still. If you increase the value.
Not
because-
necessarily.
If you keep the mills the same.
Yes.
If you keep the mills the same, yep, absolutely. But if the mill levy went down, then, you know, if your value is doubled, theoretically, you could levy half the mill and get the same amount of money.
Yeah.
So, taxes going up is not.
I wonder if the school board. does anything.
Run the school board.
So that's something else commonly with this end property tax, you hear all the time, well, valuations are going through the roof, my taxes are gonna be. No, you are electing people that identify the mill levy. So they don't have to keep the same, they can cut it in half, they can reduce it to have the same level of taxation. That's where people that vote have to get involved. Because the valuation doesn't directly correlate to taxes.
And in a small community like this, you have a real opportunity to be involved in that process.
So if the measure goes through, you will be capped at the mill levy you are at this year. So no matter what. So again, if you have to build a new school, if you have to
Say
build
that
a new
again.
shop, if the property tax measure goes through, you will, as a taxing authority, city, county, township, school board, you will be capped at that mill levy and those amounts as it stands today.
So those that are below the 18 will never qualify for the grant funding? They won't
Well-
be able to raise up to the 18?
Let's see, I think township meetings are coming up in March, right?
Yeah, so,
Everybody's a little concerned about that, both at the city, county, and township school board level, that if you're not maxed out, I mean, they're kind of hedging their bets, is the property tax measure gonna go through or not, so, you know,
if they
no,
pass it this March, they'll be okay. That will be the cap, or?
well, that will be the cap if they vote to go to 18.
Okay.
But, as far as the grant, the DOT grant funding programs, there's other programs in there that we're working on to make sure townships that don't, because really what it boiled down to, and I don't wanna, this isn't a township meeting, but is because the western side of the state and oil country, there are counties and townships that levy zero because they have so much oil tax revenue. And so and the other reason why it was set at 18 mills in the flex fund for townships is because they wanted to see buy-in. They wanted to make sure townships were helping their own too. So instead of just coming to the state asking for handouts, they make sure they're helping their own first. But anyway, I think
Yeah.
Can you explain
talk
to
to
them,
Lana.
can you explain to them what the state did as far as raising the valuation? I believe it was, if I remember that they come in and said that industrial was, we had to be so high, otherwise they would come in and raise it. You remember that?
For residential,
Yeah, residential and agricultural.
so that was, every year we have to run a sales ratio analysis. We break it down to agricultural, residential, commercial. State law says we have to be between 90 and 100% tolerance level. And that's going to be looking at your sales prices versus assessed values. And those are, Bruce, you asked about, whether they're double or, whatever, they're all over the place. There's a figure called coefficient of dispersion that measures your spread. That should be, they like it below 15%. We're at like 48, which means some things are really undervalued and some things are overvalued. And the whole purpose of my job is to equalize that and make sure everybody's paying only what they should pay, not more, not less. And so last year for residential, we came in at 84%, 85%, right in there. And so when that goes to State Board of Equalization can say, we want you at 100, and values go up 14%, and we are 16%, we have no say in it. So at county equalization, we went up 6% to get us to that 90% tolerance level so that the state didn't have their hands in it. Hopefully, as I'm getting caught up with things in my office and we get out and get values at appropriate assessment levels, those numbers will be more appropriate where we're supposed to be, and we won't have an overall increase. I don't like an overall increase I don't like to tell a taxpayer, well, I had to raise it because we had to raise it, we had to have this level. I wanna say I raised it because you have this new garage and you have, you know what I mean? I wanna be able to give the reasons as to why your value is what it is, so.
Thank you.
Yep,
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Just a dumb question. You have the real value of the property. What is the formula for determining the taxable value?
so for a residence, you take the true and full value, divide that by 2 is your assessed value, and then times 9% is your taxable value. For agriculture and commercial, same formula except you times it by 10%. So, primary residence credit, you already mentioned it, it's a great thing. Built into the state's budget, $500 off of your primary residence, only an online application at tax.nd.gov/PRC. You need your name, your parcel number, your social security number, and your street address. Super easy. If you're not tech savvy, we threw a computer on the counter. I'd be happy to help you with it. And even I've filled them out for people over the phone if you're comfortable giving your social security number over the phone. Parcel number, you can either call us and get it, otherwise it is on your tax statement in the upper right corner. This does not apply to farm structures, so if you're farm residence exempt, you wouldn't qualify for this because it's taking it off of your house. And if you're farm residence exempt, it's like your house isn't there. So if you tried it and get an error, that is probably why. These transitions are really slow and I don't know why, and I apologize. Anybody have any questions on the primary residence credit? The link is on adamscountynd.com too. March 31st is the deadline for that. Homestead credit, you can get primary residence credit and homestead credit at the same time, 65 and older or permanently and totally disabled. If you are permanently and totally disabled, I would need a physician's certificate of disability, and I just need that once. Last year, House Bill 1158 greatly expanded the eligibility for this. We had 64 parcels that received homestead credit in 2022. Last fall, after we could take late applications last year because of this passing. I went through every taxpayer, make sure they lived in the county, looked up their age, sent them an application. So 2023, we had 225 parcels approved, several of those paying no taxes at all. 2024, hopefully we have even more. Applications are still coming in. The state extended the deadline to March 31st. So if you got an app from me, it probably says February 1st, but you have till March 31st. Any questions on homestead credit? The really good thing about homestead credit and the primary residence credit is all of that money still comes to the county, the school, the fire district, the township that you live in. Those entities aren't losing out on any of the money. It's still being paid, and so there's still that local control.
Can you have a question?
Yeah.
On the 65 or older, is it just one person in the residence or is it?
Correct. Yep. But if you're married and one spouse is 65 and older and one isn't, it's still both of your incomes. Okay. Last December 2022, when I was brand new, just figuring things out, I got slammed with an audit from the state on how we value agriculture and land, and realized we have a real problem. So they did technically pass us. So we're good for 5 years. We're not being penalized yet, but there was 3 major issues pointed out by the Commissioner Cautious and State Supervisor of Assessments. The big one that several of you noticed on your tax statements is unplatted taxable parcels cannot be greater than 160 acres, and they can't cross a quarter line. So like, you own the north half of the north half, now it's the north half of the northwest and the north half of the northeast. Most of these were completed in 2023. Some were early this year because we ran into budget season last year, so we couldn't, when it was split, if it rounded $1 one way or the other, Krista yelled at me. It caused issue with budgets for whatever township that was in, county, etc. This law was passed in 1931, so we're just 92 years behind. But most of those are done. A few do remain. Our software won't allow for a split if you're behind on taxes. So there's people that owe 2 years of taxes. I can't split their land until it's paid. So
How many?
thousands. It consumed my year last year. Thousands of splits. So yeah, I mean, Aaron didn't see me on evenings and weekends, and I was up here with the ghosts. So.
What is the significance of that? How does that,
I think the thought behind it is if somebody is to lose land to either delinquent taxes or bank foreclosure, you're only losing it 160 acres at a time. So that's, otherwise I don't know why, just they were bored and wanted to give people something to do. That's the only logical reason I can think of, but. So here's a couple of clips of a tax statement. This is a 2022 statement. You can see the legal description is the west half. This would be the parent parcel, 2 child parcels. This has the same number as the parent parcel. So you're gonna get this history here, but now it's just a southwest quarter. And you see the value change from 159 to 83,000. And then this is the other half of that parcel, the northwest quarter. You lose that history. If you add these together, it's going to equal this plus, you know, the increase in land value from 2022 to 2023. Does that make sense to everyone? Anybody have questions on that? It was really not fun. And then the other 2 items that we got hit with here kind of go together. Dated soil survey and inconsistent soil data. Agriculture land, like I said, is valued based off of the production value of the soil. And so you have to have a soil survey. They should be broken out by soil. Each of those soils is given a value. Ours were grouped. This is also there. This is if we don't come into compliance with these things, the state treasurer will withhold 5% of the county's state aid distribution fund. And that does go into a separate account, and when we come into compliance, we get it all back. But until we're compliant, that money would be withheld. And so we won't be audited again for probably 2 to 3 years. But this is our current soil data. We have 8 grouped types, 5 tillable, 3 grazing, these in transits, which I can't tell you what they are, where they are, why they're valued that. I like black and white and being able to explain something to you, and I can't tell you that. And then there's waste, which is a lot of water. This, going forward, will be our new soil types. And they're broken down to cropland and non-cropland based off of the use. This is going to let me scroll through. Oh boy. now there are 99 soil types in each category. Each with its own value. So previously, the highest valued soil in that in transit, the TK, was $1,800 an acre. Again, production value, according to sales ratio, production value is approximately a third of market value, which means the market value of those acres would be $5,900. And I've only been here 2 years, but I've not seen land sell for $5,900 an acre yet. On this one, the highest valued land per acre is 900 some per acre, and it equates to less than 1% of the land in the county because we don't have great growing land. Any questions on any of that?
Katie, could you repeat how many different classifications there were? Say 190?
So previously we had 5 tillable, so presumably cropland, whether you're using it that way or not. 3 grazing, 10 in transit, which I don't know what those are, and 1 for waste. Going forward, we'll have 99 soil types under crop and 99 under non-crop. So
whose idea was that?
it makes it way more fair. And I actually think that overall, we're gonna see a decrease in land values. Some specific parcels might go up and some might go down. But the lowest somebody was paying, other than wasteland, for an acre of land because of how they were grouped was $127 an acre, and then $36 an acre for waste. Going forward, it's $15 an acre for wasteland water. Oh my gosh, I'm not loving this. So here, this is non-crop land. That's going to be based off of animal unit months, what the land can grow for, or feed a cow-calf pair for grazing. This is a production index of 0.02. That's valued at $8.47 an acre. This one, 0.18. $76 an acre. You're paying, it's gonna make it so you're paying for what's actually there, not an average based off of, you might have this really crappy soil, but this really good soil might be in there as well, so.
They don't take into consideration rocks on your land, do they?
This does.
You got lots of rocks.
This does. Previous ones does not, so.
We got rocks, we got half as much land to graze.
Yeah. I mean, this way is going to be a lot more fair.
How is that process? Like, they use maps?
So use the NRCS web soil survey, and then we're able to, with our GIS software, take that web soil survey, overlay it with the parcel layer. And so, I mean, there's gonna be breakdowns where, you know, say you have this EO531B, you might have 7/100ths of an acre on your land, on your land, and you're gonna be taxed only on that 7/100ths of an acre.
So it's all, I guess I want everybody to know, it's all generated by these maps and a program. It's not like Katie's sitting here drawing circles on your
And then we
site map.
adopted to an actual land use layer, so are you farming it or are you grazing it? Because you might, I mean, I think our highest PI index for soil is 99, very little of it in the county. But say you have cows on it and your family's been ranchers for years, and to tell somebody, well, sorry, I guess you should be planting it, isn't really right. If you're not planting it, you should be taxed on how you're using it. So that's a huge step forward, and way more equitable to the taxpayers. Just some deadlines already mentioned, March 31st, primary residence credit and homestead credit. Fire residence exemption applications, February 1st. If I don't have it, please get it to me. And then statement of farm gross income is March 31st. Local equalization meetings, townships have yet to be set. I'm going to be speaking to the different township officials, and hopefully we can have one here. Century Code does say that it has to be at like their normal meeting place unless you share an assessor, and everyone shared me. So otherwise, a lot of the township meetings are at the same time in many different locations, and so I wouldn't be able to be present to answer any questions. City of Henniger is April 10th at 8 a.m. I don't think we have anybody from Bucyrus, Haynes, or Reader here. And then the county one is June 6th at 1. So, if you are going to contest a value, come talk to me. If it's simply an error, we can save everybody time and take care of it before equalization. If it's something that has to go to equalization, you have to start at the lowest level. You have to go to your township meeting, township equalization meeting, or your city equalization meeting, or the county's not obligated to pass it, and that's the first question they'll ask you at State Board of Equalization. And then that. Any questions for me?
So the city can get 10 acres into a cemetery, would you pay taxes on that?
Cemetery would be tax exempt.
That's still taxed?
No, a cemetery is not.
So you can take a whole quarter land and make it a cemetery if you want. Well, that's not a bad idea. You have a big headstone there, right? We got plenty of stones.
Thank you, Katie, for putting together that. That was lots of information, and I appreciate that. If there are any questions for Katie, if not, I guess we'll just move to the point of open discussion. If you have questions for any of the department heads or the commission ourselves, I guess we'll just go from there.
I guess I got a question on the property tax thing with, looking before the voters, we're doing away with the property taxes. Well, where are you gonna get your money? Is that the 18% that everybody's gonna get, or?
So they'll still do taxes, it just won't be an assessed value.
Fees. Local fees. Like the commissioner was saying, so you're gonna be capped at where you're at today, right? That money you will still get, but anything above that, the state is gonna have to come up with about $2.3 billion to fill the gaps. And I mean, it literally takes away all local control, local say whatsoever, and kind of negates why we have township and school board and city commissions.
How are you gonna persuade all the taxpayers not to vote for it?
I don't know. That's your job, I think, right?
I know the North Dakota League of Cities ran a financial analysis of it, and the math does not match.
Yeah, it doesn't. Do you want local control or not?
I'm not saying I don't want, I'd rather have it spent locally, I'm just saying, how do you convince
Well, I think
the
that's
majority of people?
That's how you convince people. I don't think Aaron Roseland wants some idiot in Fargo telling me how to spend my school board money.
I agree.
I mean, we have enough problems with idiots in Fargo. Sorry if anybody's in here from Fargo, but telling us how to spend our oil money that we're generating here on our side of the state. The fact of the matter is, our side of the state is generating all the money, and their side of the state is spending it all. And they're completely oblivious to this fact. They're letting our roads and all of our resources get run into the ground where they're living like fat cats. Don't even get me started on the legacy fund and the mismanagement of that, in my opinion. But we are in, I think everybody in this room knows I probably run bluer than most, and that's fine. But fiscally, I'm very conservative. And I think one of the principles that we have around here is local control. We want to be able to say where our money goes. We want to say where our tax dollars go. We want to say what the state's attorney's salary is going to be through them. We want to say what the sheriff's salary is going to be through them, right? That's all gone. It's gone. We want to have, do we enjoy having court here once a month, such as it is? That's gone. We're all going to Dickinson. I mean, this is not, I don't think it's hard to convince people if you sit down and actually talk to somebody about the lack of local control that will result if we get rid of property taxes. It's ironic to me in a state where we are conservative and believe in self-actualization and self-control, we're wanting to essentially turn ourselves into a federalist system on the state level. It makes no sense to me, to be totally honest with you. And I'm sorry that my voice is raised, but it's something I feel very passionate about. Because I know that myself, Aaron Roseland, I cannot abide by the property tax going away. I'm not going to work for a centralized state's attorney's office out of Bismarck and lose local control over things. I want to be able to talk to my commissioners about what my budget is and what my needs are. I don't want to have to go to Bismarck because my computer crapped out and I wasn't able to budget for a computer or whatever, right?
So, is anybody gonna advocate for that?
Every single person in this room should be advocating for that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? There's gonna be all these ads going, do you want your property tax to go down?
Well, let's just get rid of all taxes.
Well, would the wind farm, would they have to pay property tax yet, or would that be gone?
Well, there's a question about those who are doing payments in lieu of taxes, and whether payment in lieu of property taxes, those entities, including churches, including, things like that. So you're raising great questions. As far as who's going to advocate against this, all I can tell you is that the organization is called Keep It Local. In 2012, the Keep It Local Coalition soundly defeated the last time this measure was on the ballot by like 75%. Here's the issue right now, everything's just kind of working behind the scenes because the the measure is not on the ballot.
Yeah.
The proponents are running around trying to debate with everybody they can on the radio, newspaper, television, whatever, and nobody's engaging them, and it's pissing them off. Because we don't want to get into that tit for tat, because you know what? I'm not going to say that your property taxes are so low here in Adams County, you wouldn't even miss it. That's not the right question is, do you want to have local control, not only where it comes from, but where it goes?
Uh-huh.
And that's what you're going to lose. That's about all I can say without getting in trouble. All I can tell you is that there's a lot of people working behind the scenes right now, but we're just not going to run out in public. All I can say is if you run into a petitioner, just politely decline and say, I believe in local control, and you don't have to sign the petition. The problem is the opponents, and I'm only speaking for the North Dakota State Attorney Association. I don't know about any other associations. But we're fighting with one hand behind our back, both hands behind our back. The North Dakota State Attorney Association cannot pay for political advertisements or advocacy of any kind because we are funded by taxpayer dollars. Yeah. You can't use taxpayer dollars, right, to lobby. Right. And so we have no voice. So that's why in days like this, people like me are standing up and saying this is insanity. Do you know how many other states have this system where there's no property taxes in the country? If you add them up, it's 0. Do we want to be on the cutting edge of idiocy? No.
In fact, where does the money come from?
Yeah. Well, nobody knows. You know where it's gonna come from? It's still gonna come from your taxes that you pay. It just comes out of a different pocket. Sales tax. Sales tax. Probably have to go. All those taxes.
But we wouldn't.
You're not gonna be paying less taxes. Fund. They've got a whole plan to fill. You're not gonna be paying less taxes overall. It's just the control of where the money goes and who has control over that money is gonna change.
Yeah.
This is the federalization of local politics.
So the ones for this aren't even saying where it's gonna come from?
They've got a really good plan.
Oh, yeah.
They're not gonna tell you the plan, because
Oh, they
then
just
you
got
feel
the
the plan.
Well, who is pushing this?
I would argue too, though, that raising
Rick Becker.
Rick Becker's pushing this?
Yeah.
raising something like sales tax, local sales tax to help pay this,
Yeah.
it is going to affect what population in our community the most. It's gonna be the elderly population that can't drive to Dickinson and Bismarck to get their groceries. You know, I'm in Bismarck, Dickinson, wherever, almost every weekend with kids' sports, you know, or passing through one of those towns. I can go get my stuff there. But a little old grandma that doesn't leave town cannot go to Kennedy's because Kennedy's won't exist. But they're going to a gas station to get a gallon of milk for however much plus 20% sales tax. I think our legislature is doing a really good job of addressing property tax relief in the form of primary residence credit, in the form of homestead credit that is benefiting those populations, you know, that need the most help. You take that away, I don't know. I feel really bad for the people that can't get out of town.
So just to add a couple comments, if I may, both sides are using scare tactics, both sides. And so I just encourage people to educate themselves, truly educate themselves. I think part of what makes us healthier as a society is when we engage different views and different viewpoints. So I really encourage people, I've engaged Rick personally, I've asked him questions. There's a plan that ultimately, as I understand it, it's really an issue of spending priorities for the state. Our state is spending money like crazy. Now, we can debate if it's wise spending or unwise, but I would argue that most of the folks that are on this bandwagon feel it's not prudent spending. And so if you force those dollars to replace property tax, then it can't be spent at the legislature, right? So there is a plan, but I just really want to encourage people, dig into it, vet it out. I'm strongly opposed to it, but I understand where it's coming from. It's coming from the disparity, especially in rural counties like Adams County, where, as I mentioned, 80% of the value is in less than half of the people. When there's a school project, it's coming from this small handful of rural property owners that are paying the bill. That's what's happening. And I think the unintended consequence, and that was one of my comments to him, was you're actually going to shift that burden to the people that can least pay it. We think it's fine now if you own a bunch of land that you have to pay a big bill and a big chunk of the county taxes, that's all right, right? But if that goes away, now we're all on the even footing. Now everybody pays the same in theory, depending on how you generate those taxes. And so there would be a huge shift, I think, especially in rural counties. So dig into it. You'll really enjoy learning about it.
Like Bowman gets to keep their oil money without tax? Is that a tax or is it?
I'm not sure.
You know, they would, they still find a way to tax.
Paying in lieu of property taxes.
They're not gonna
If they get a distraction in production taxes, that's a completely different animal.
Well, I think it's Scott stated before, where it is now is where that would be. And if you ever needed to change it, then you would have to do some local taxing or something to change that.
I remember when they used to come in your house and tax your couch, your chairs, and they'd count your cattle, I went some of the cattle you got, and there's machinery, as everyone just stated that, they voted that up, and where the state took the money to make up for that. That was a good example.
Well, there really wouldn't be any use for graduation anymore.
That's right.
Katie would have to pay.
Katie would have.
Be all zoning, I don't want that.
With the shop deal short-handed now this year, Chandler always goes through you guys to do blading for township roads in Chandler. Is that something that you guys are interested in, or would you rather we went somewhere else to find a blade, being a little short-handed?
So we are currently shorthanded and we're aggressively looking for operators and such, but I absolutely, and I'm sure Justin will agree, we don't want to turn anybody away. We're gonna prioritize. Justin and I have been speaking about this and prioritize, things that absolutely need it, like normally where we'd probably do a mile of graveling or something, we'll do spot graveling to get by, do the worst of it, but we're gonna get our blading done, and we absolutely wanna get the roads fixed up. There's been a lot of traffic from harvest, and then you get a winter where you have open roads, and the roads are in rough shape. And no, I guess Justin, maybe you want to touch on that, but I guess I feel that's the goal is we're not gonna do less, we're just gonna do the important things first.
Can I throw another kink in that? So last year Chandler underwent a project where we started pulling in shoulders on some of our first roads, and we let that bed kind of firm up, and the plan was with Harley to come through and gravel about 3 miles this summer. Is that something that's gonna be possible, or are you guys?
I think it'll be possible.
Okay.
Again, prioritize. If it needs it, if it's, and that'll be a lot on Justin's shoulders, is, in all of them, they're all working together as a team out there, but if there's places that absolutely need it, we've got places to where the base is coming through, and we're gonna need to do a couple loads here or there just to get by, but if you had a project where, like you said, you pulled in the slopes and now you need gravel on it, I think that would go on their priority list, yes.
It would really be a waste if that prepared road wasn't completed at this point, all the work that had gone into pulling up shoulders and doing that with.
You shape.
That would have to go for another year without any gravel, for example, that would be terrible.
Throw a bunch of dirt on it, so as soon as it rains, it's just gonna be a really mess, so it's gonna be.
But right now, it's prepared very well for.
That's 3 miles.
Yeah, we got 3 miles we want to do this summer. It's not all in the same spot, 3 miles.
Well, and I guess I encourage township members, as you're filling out your maps, if you do have some priority stuff, when you turn those maps in, either let Justin know or the auditor know, or make notes on the maps. I know in Cedar, we make a note, this is a priority, this is, this needs to be done or whatever, and then of course we like our roads bladed a minimum 2 times or whatever, but I would make a note of priorities so that we can address that first, and obviously gravel, they like to haul gravel when it's too dry to blade, so I mean, I would imagine we get some spring moisture, the blades are gonna be out trying to do as much as they can, so they're probably not gonna be out doing your gravel right away, but it just seems like the order of operation, it seems like June, July is a heavy gravel laying time, but just depends on the moisture. If there's no moisture and it's dangerous to blade, then I think, and maybe I'm speaking up for them, but I think the plan would be to lay gravel then, just because there's moisture in that pile of gravel, it seems like, so.
Something too, I think that plays into that, especially with short of help, is using resources. So to me, it would make a lot of sense to bring in trucks and have more than the county run, be working more efficient and smarter. And I don't know if that's always been the plan in the past, but I think people are going to be harder and harder to come by, so we just have to be smarter with how we use our resources.
Could you explain what unorganized townships, what the county does to them?
Unorganized?
Yeah.
So, and I've been reaching out to certain unorganized township members too, just because, I know some of the stuff has been overlooked. And so you're paying the same amount of taxes and you don't have that local representation, you don't have a board and stuff. But I still haven't encouraged, Gene, I talked to Gene and Justin both the other day about, getting maps out and maybe we distribute them in the unorganized township and just have you guys help us identify problems or things that need blading or need work. And I guess I strongly encourage, if you have things in unorganized townships, communication is the key. If you need something done, you just need to call a commissioner, call the highway department. And I know personally your guys' township a couple years ago was overlooked when we were in between supervisors, and I hope that's.
What are you supposed to do? I mean, do you blade it once a year, the township roads? What does the county do for unorganized?
Depends on how bad they are. If they're holding up, we're not gonna hit them as much, but if they're going bad, just let us know, we'll come out and blade them.
But normally, do you blade them once a year?
Yes. Yeah.
I would say all roads that are bladable, that actually have gravel, not a prairie trail, are at minimum supposed to be hit once a year.
How about a prairie trail that was supposed to be maintained and hasn't been?
They're starting to deteriorate to where they're impassable.
Yeah, I'm responsible for mowing out of Billy's, and there's a mile there that was gravel 20 years ago, 15 years ago. Started to see a little grass in the middle, and now when I mow down one side, and I mow the middle of the road, and then I come back empty and mow down the other side again.
When I talked to Josh Anderson, he said that road wasn't even on the map on.
Not
the
certified
list.
road.
But it is.
I was gonna say it should be if it was
It is.
gravel at some point in time.
It is.
I guess I would just encourage you to have that conversation with Justin and
Well, I
when we're out there, we'll make sure we get something done for you.
I did talk to Josh and then he quit, and so I hope that I talk to you.
We'll get something taken care of.
My understanding that even minimum maintenance roads need to be worked once a year to qualify for any state funding money-wise.
They certainly should be, yes. I mean, if there's a road that we're levying, I don't know if we went through this a while back. I don't know that it specifies it has to be bladed, but it specifies it has to be maintained. So, does that mean no grass can be grown in the middle, or, I guess it all depends on the definition of maintained, and so, but if there's problems, I strongly encourage you to reach out, or if there's certain roads that
To be on that township map, it has to have some sort of maintenance.
If it's certified, if we're levying funds from that road, then it should be maintained, yes, one way or another. Whether some roads maintaining might be mowing, some maintaining might be blading them twice a year. It just depends on there. We've kind of gone through this with some section lines in the past that, and there was difference. One was levied, one wasn't. One operator, one farmer wanted it bladed and shaped. The next farmer was upset because now when it rained, he couldn't drive on the sod, on the grass, and it just turned to slop. So we try to find a happy medium. I don't know if there's a perfect happy medium, but we try to work with everybody, but there's just times to where everybody's gonna have a difference of opinion on how to maintain a certain road.
Steve, may I speak?
Yeah.
It's gonna take me a little bit, so I thought I'd just come in front of somebody must have turned their head or wondered what I'm saying. First, I want to thank you guys for having the meeting as always, and I don't mean this to be more of a criticism of what I hear. One thing that I believe happens is that when the local people don't respond to the taxpayers, they put their hands up and say, nothing's happening, so why don't we move? Does it really affect us if we move the control to Bismarck? does it really affect us if we move the control of Fargo? Now, I'm totally opposed to the measure that they have, but I think that my criticism, because you are a governing board, I'm hoping that I guess my entire purpose of this conversation is to encourage you to govern more. And, you know, we talk about the county roads, 8th Avenue, which I don't drive very much anymore because until summer comes, you can't drive part of that road. It has such a, you'd have to straddle it, you tear your car apart, and people over there.
Speed bumps.
That's,
Speed bump.
and that's a count, but, just, well, no, it's a speed bump. You know, it's just not safe. You have to straddle, it's a county road, and it needs whatever.
Is that a county road or a township?
It's a county road. It's a county road that goes all the way across. But we hear the same thing, I've heard this for 4 years, you know, with at least about the county department. You know, it's, you know, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, and it doesn't get done. I'm not so sure our roads aren't, I don't know if they're any worse, but they aren't any better than they were before Josh took over. Maybe they're the same. And I think a lot of it I hear is budget. But there's not enough money. We don't, you know, we're short of staff. So how do we get the staff? What do we need to do? And I think those are the questions. If that means pay people more, let's pay people more. If we need to pay the top of the guy who heads it up more, let's pay people more. Because it costs a hell of a lot of money to drive $70,000 vehicles on these roads. I don't do that. I mean, I don't do it, but people do. Now, that leads me into the next question. Where do you get the money? I want to pick on the sheriff for a minute. So where do we get the money? We control budgets. Now, I understand that the sheriff has total control over his budget, and he should spend his money. And he should spend it how he wants to. But with that said, when we have so many deputies that we can send them on the road, Highway 12, and constantly monitor to the east, constantly monitor to the west, on Highway 8, I don't know about 22, the question should be, does he have too much money in his budget to spend all that money on those people doing that? I would say yes. Now, how he spends his money is his business. But if you give somebody too much money, they're going to do unwise things with it. And if they decide to give the chief deputy more money, that's okay. But then if he's short of help at the bottom, then he has to bear the result of his decision. So I would encourage you to really look at that budget and say how much can we take away from there so that we can have better roads. The fatalities, the accidents, the fatalities that I know have occurred on county roads. They have not occurred on Highway 12 or Highway 8 or maybe 22 has, I don't know. But I think we gotta start thinking about where the money can come from. Besides just raising taxes. And I'm okay with that if we get better roads. But as somebody said, it's not gonna happen, so why raise taxes? So I just want to bring those things up and hope that you really take the bull by the horn and lead. And I think all too often you hear from the negatives. And I respect all three commissioners. I think they have a role in things. And I know at times you guys don't agree, but I think that's okay because you diverse opinions can hopefully move the discussion along the process. So I want to thank you all for that, but don't be hesitant to lead. And the one thing about the city, I looked at that about 4 years ago. I think, whether it's right or wrong, they're not paying enough money to meet their share. And I think if we're going to live with that, that's okay, but at least it should come.
So, regarding the road and bridge department, that is something we've looked at. This year, as part of the budget, we had the Association of Counties puts together a salary survey. And as of the budget process, we looked at 14 counties that were similar to ours as it related to employees and valuation, smaller counties in the state. There was 114 operators, equipment operators, road and bridge type folks in that grouping. Adams County had the lowest, the second lowest, the fifth lowest, and the ninth lowest out of 114. So, no, we aren't paying enough in my humble opinion. We did take action once we realized some of that discrepancy to bump them $1.50. So now we're at the 3rd, 4th, 7th, and 29th. So we're moving on. But I appreciate that point, and I'm excited that we're using some numbers to see how we do compare, because it is a competitive market. And we ask a lot without necessarily compensating.
Well, it really is, unfortunately, we have to pay for labor, but that is the nature of the world, and we have to pay a lot of money. And I know benefits are extremely expensive, but we are in that world, and we need to compete in that world.
Frank, do you have a comment?
Yeah, it's a different issue, but I'm kind of curious, back on the blading thing, do we have any responsibility to blade the alleyways in the city?
Yes.
Do you know how often?
If I knew, it's at least once a year.
Once a year?
Yep. I don't know. I know last year we hit some, I can't say which ones. Because half the time I was out on the blade, but I knew we hit some last year, so, and grabbing some.
Is there a time frame when that's generally done, or a target time frame?
Depends on, I guess, what we're doing out in the county. So if we got time in town, we will. I'd like to hit it like in the spring, just kind of like county roads.
And again, communication, I think if you have one in mind, or if there's one that's, I mean, I'm sure majority of them, like any gravel road this year, is that they're in rough shape, but yeah, just communication, I would encourage.
Like this cemetery road out here, that was, the wind farm, that was the nicest gravel road when they fixed it, and then they paved it, it's almost shot again already. Now, see, spent $1 million for nothing. Or
I guess we've taken some action. I feel we've been proactive. We left a full-time restriction on there of 40 ton, correct? Yeah, 80,000 pound max. And, you know, before we would just put up restriction signs, you know, seasonally, and I think it was back about 5 years ago, we motioned and moved to leave those signs up year round and make it an 80,000 pound
I
road.
remember how that happened, that was a free road to begin with, the government gave free, that's why we either got a little bit land and had it here in the golf course, that was plumb free, but actually it wasn't free, all the money was stuck in it already.
Chip seal, as anybody at the highway department will tell you, the chip sealed roads cost a lot of money, and I know Bowman County has many, many miles of county chip sealed roads, and they spend a large amount of a budget maintaining those. We've gone over and over different discussions. One I guess that's come up a lot is the overhead road north of 11 there, north on the left side. We put a lot of money into that, and you know, disappointing turnout on, there were a couple of soft spots, and we tried to go back and fix them. The engineers stood by a lot of their work and helped out with that. But it just is not built, a chip seal road is not built for the truck traffic that comes on there.
These trucks are so big and heavy now, it just, I mean, there's no sense in having a paved road, I don't think.
Well, I absolutely learned none of these roads in the county can handle these. They were built for 16-foot trucks, and now we get these big loads on them. So even the gravel roads are getting beat up bad. And not just that, I mean, just the weight, it's deep.
But you're right, a chip seal road is not, a double chip seal is not designed to handle even a semi at 80,000
But I mean,
pounds,
if
truthfully.
the farmer can't go down that road, they're gonna go a few miles down the road and do twice as much traffic than the next gravel road.
Yeah.
For weight.
Who's responsible for enforcing, like the cemetery road or the county road? Is it the sheriff's responsibility?
Well, in his defense, we've never asked him to set up and weigh or anything. I know with the previous sheriff, we had that conversation and it was in his goal to get set up and do it. But we have not, with Sheriff Fisher being fairly new, we just have not had that conversation yet about doing any weight checking or anything like that. I know they patrol it for speed and stuff like that, they're out there, but we do have a set of scales. I believe are they still up to date, Sheriff, or are they?
No, last time I checked, I think the certification was like 5 years ago. Was the last time they were ever certified?
Yeah, I think I've been all the time, so it's something, I guess, you know, and we're open to views or opinions on that too. That's your tax dollars, those roads
Golf
are.
course road, now, is that county or does the city have to pay for part of that, the golf course?
So the country club road is our
Yeah.
county road, you know. Yeah.
But the city has to pay for part of that, or is that all rural?
No, that's all county road, county owned.
So the city don't pay for none of that, but they get to use the golf course.
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, if your farm's over by your place, if you're paying for it, but you're not using it either.
Yeah, and I guess that comes down to highway tax and gas tax, and I mean, they're just, you know, you can drive to the east side of the state and drive on somebody's road, and if you don't buy fuel there, you're using it for free too, you know. I
Well,
mean,
they could run a road straight across to Highway 8, it'd be easier than going around all those curves, it seems to me like.
So we are working on, speaking of the country club road, we're working on designing a project there, and there's been some contact with BNSF about, they contacted the auditor, I guess, and there's just been some ideas thrown out about possibly trying to deter some crossing issues in the city of Hettinger. And it hasn't gone any farther than just, they've thrown ideas to the county and to the city, and one of the ideas was to extend, when you come past the Evenson Ranch there, to extend that into the railroad right away, all the way to that next crossing, to that where it curves to the south, and make that a frontage road to basically to the railroad, and then they want to take that crossing out on the east side of the lake, which you know, we're not real crazy about either. So there's some give and take, but nothing has been decided. It's merely even just been brought to us as ideas from the railroad. So take that for what it's worth.
So how are you guys leaning on the county, city shared services? Are we trying to get along? Are we not?
Well,
trying to get along?
I think it's a very important partnership. I think that, and this is my personal views, but I think that the city, you know, needs us as much as we need them in many ways. My personal views are that, you know, we just purchased another new to us used blade, that just was delivered this week, last week? Tuesday this week, okay. And the reason we have equipment and personnel is because we do contract to the city. I feel that absolutely helps us have the finances to keep extra personnel on and stuff. And you look at this year, the city has had very limited amounts of snow that needed to be removed and things like that, but it's still a very important, you know, what's the city gonna do if they have to employ a full-time or probably 2 full-time people to move snow? That's not real cost-effective for them. But, you know, I guess in my views, without that city contract, that pays for a lot of our equipment, a lot of our maintenance, and some of our personnel. So I think we need to work together and come to a mutual agreement, and it's a great team thing, I think.
Well, I was around back when they first did it, you know, when the city and the county were separate, and when they joined up together, they were lauding it, and oh my God, we're saving money everywhere, and not duplicating services, kind of thing.
You know, and if you look at competitive wages now, again, like I said, if the city would have to hire, you know, help or even to contract out, I mean, you know, it's gonna be an extreme amount of money, but at the same time, I think we would have to maybe cut some equipment or personnel without that contract too. it's revenue, it's used revenue for the county. So I think I see Mr. Lindquist back there.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. I think the city and county are working to see what's equitable between both groups. Like I said, the city doesn't have any employees of our own, so we have to contract out all those services. And because we can't really fix those prices, like I said, we're kind of at the mercy of whatever it costs to do those. So, like I said, if down the road prices jump up, all those costs have to move on to our citizens. And looking at the handout that Anthony gave, we had 1,700 people in town, and we had 3,500 at the census when it started, and we're down to like 1,100 here in town. So there's less and less people around with the same stuff to support. So people are paying more, and as we went through with taxes, the city did jump up. We're at 94 mils, something like that. For people, and I personally don't like continually jumping up taxes to pay for less and less people staying in town, and I know that the city and the county have a really interesting relationship because no other city, county in the state does this sort of cooperation with each other, but we're working as best we can to cut down costs on both sides and be fair.
And I would just add on, since I brought this up, certainly I think we need to work together. In fact, I would argue that we're missing the boat by not working with neighboring counties. The reality is, you look back to the census data, our counties are shrinking big time. But at the same time, we've got tremendous technology, we've got tremendous transportation. We are operating county government today the same as when we had 3,500 people, generally. And so if taxpayers are willing to pay that bill, so be it. But the world, to me, has changed so much that I'm hopeful that county government, we can be looking at more creative, innovative ways to work with neighbors, because our trades, everything we do is we work with neighboring communities. And so if we want to keep everything as it was when we had more people, it's going to cost us. So with that, the city's getting a sweetheart deal. I want this to work, but the responsibility of us at this table is for the residents of Adams County. And by us just blindly continuing while inflation goes through the roof and there's subsidization of Adams County as a whole, we're not doing our job. So that's why this is an issue I think has to be dealt with.
Well, I'm glad you go on the radio. That helps learn a lot of stuff. On TTO. I mean, you can't read it in the paper like when you say it.
Okay, any other questions or items, discussion?
Can I just have a comment?
Yeah.
Well, I hope, just like you guys were talking, that you're gonna work together, because I don't think people now see the value of this combined services. Now, Betty Swahovic was still alive. She had the figures of how much this was saving everybody. But now it takes cooperation, and you've got to work together. And I hope you don't abandon this thing and go back to the other system, because this is way better than what it used to be. But if there's still problems, you're going to still have people problems, and you'll have to work through it. And you will.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm not worried about it.
So I forgot who said, so this is the only city-county relationship in the state?
No.
Yes?
Not the city and county for like the auditor and that kind of stuff, it's not.
There's a lot of shared county services.
Utilities.
I would be surprised, because I don't have the information like that.
I can find it out.
There used to be just one, but I think
Public
they're
Works.
more now.
I would think the more rural counties and cities get this,
There's a lot of shared police services.
Krista, what did you say?
I said, we were just talking, the auditor, like that relationship is only one in the county or in the state. But like the public works is shared between city and county in several different ones.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So the city has their own auditors in other communities?
Correct. Adams County is the only one that has it that way. There is one other county looking into it. I want to say it could be McLean County. She's been contacting me with just different issues that I have seen with the combination.
What percentage of your office, I don't know how many people you have, but what percentage of your office is actually spent doing city work versus county?
All of the departments, well, several of the departments are time tracking that right now. We're doing a year study so that we can say that more definitively. Because it depends, like, then if you ask me, like, this month, you know, how much do you do for the city, how much do you do for the county? This time of year, I do very little for the city. It's a lot of county stuff, but if we get more towards the summer, that can shift, you know? Or even year to year, if I'm assessing on the east side of the county versus if I'm in the center and I have a lot of town assessments, you know? And so we are, several of the departments are doing that time tracking study to be able to give actual numbers. It's hard to think like, oh, I don't know, maybe 10, 15, you know, but we'll get more concrete numbers doing this. You know, so then it, you know, if the city should be paying 40% of my salary, we have the numbers behind that to say, this is the hours she's putting towards that.
We'll have that information, obviously, at the end of the year, or calendar year from that study, and it'll be really useful for renewing a city-county contract.
Is the road by the park and the grain elevator, is that a county road?
Pardon?
The road that goes right by the grain elevator in the park, is that a county road or is that city?
Right by the park would be city, whereas the,
Spillway, I believe.
yeah, is it the road that goes to the spillway and then it becomes county? I believe, no, you're right. But now on the west side, I believe some of that is a stretch of county. No, I'm talking towards, yeah, no.
Yes, until.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure west of the park where that is. I can tell you right offhand about that.
It's
But that's a shared city-county project, I guess, when we did the chip seal there, that was a shared project. So.
I think he's referring to the elevator road itself that you guys rebuilt and that. Is that a county road or is that city street?
Well, again, where the road that comes up from the spillway from the south, from there east is county, and from there west is city, but I'm not sure where the west boundary is there. I couldn't tell you tonight.
But the project included everything from the highway around the corner and back to the highway.
The chip seal.
No, but the matting, they laid mat on all that. Was that 2 years ago? 3 years ago?
The city paid a portion of that, their portion. I believe, did you pay 50,000 for your portion? Do you remember? Because then you guys built the park board for what they had around the Flag Plaza. But you guys were billed by the county. I believe it was 50,000. And then you guys billed out like 8,000 or something to the park board for what they did around the greenery, because that was parking lot owned by park board.
The project extended north past the cemetery to Irish Well.
Yeah, it was the same crew, yeah, but the city did pay for their portion.
Well, I was just wondering, is that then county road north past the cemetery?
North, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
So you're saying then, tonight, you're saying that the road from the spillway connection to that road is county road?
Part of it.
Which part?
So, nothing to do with the spillway road. It's just the boundary between county and city on
Oh,
elevator road.
that was your dividing.
Yeah, that was just the boundary line on the elevator road.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, because the city limits comes straight through the lake and I think crosses right about there.
I believe
If I
so.
don't feel like a map, I got it right.
Thank you. Thanks for coming
We
up.
have plans in the future of paving the Haynes Road too.
To repave the Haynes Road?
Yeah.
I don't believe so. I believe, and we discussed that last year, was to mill it and gravel is
That's
needed.
better.
I think it is. I think it's a lot safer road, you know, personally, and I think, you know, back when the city of Haynes was more of a city and less of a village, I think it was important to have some of that chip seal, but now I don't see much of an advantage of the county paying extra tax dollars to maintain the chip seal. Especially for the truck traffic, the ag traffic, it's awful hard to that chip seal. Okay, is there anything else? We appreciate you guys all coming and feel free to contact commissioners, department heads, anybody at any time with questions and we thank you for your time and for your faith in us to do the job. Take a cookie and all the water on the way out.
Well, I wasn't. Yeah, it's Lena.
Traditionally, all